For more MTG resources and articles, check out paperchampion.net.
This is Tao with MTG Forge, and today I'm going to be stepping out of my comfort zone a little bit to bring you a different type of deck. Now, normally, I like the types of decks that are typically blue-black, like Dimir colors. I usually like the ones that are a little bit janky or whatever, but tend to control the opponent quite a bit. But today, I'm going to be talking about Skred Red. Now, Skred is based off of this red card called Skred. And basically what this says is Skred deals damage to target creature equal to the number of snow permanents you control. It's a 1 red instant. And basically the way we get snow permanents is by playing snow lands. Okay, so we have 20 snow-covered mountains. Okay, and we also have 2 Scrying Sheets, which are snow lands. Now, one of the things here is, and this is actually an interesting thought I had, is that how come everybody doesn't play snow-covered mountains? Like they're not actually any different than regular mountains. They don't come into the battlefield tapped. They still produce red mana. And I was just saying, like, as soon as someone drops a snow-covered mountain, you're pretty much going to think they're playing Skred Red, because no other deck plays them, because there's not really any reason to play them. So I was thinking, like, well, if you're playing goblins or something, then why not just play snow-covered mountains, make your opponent think that you're playing Skred, and then just go off on goblins and confuse your opponent. If you do know why people don't just play snow-covered mountains, let me know, because I actually have no idea. Anyway, so we got our 22 lands and our 4 Skreds. Right, so basically our threats in this deck are super high mana costs, like, between 4 and 6 mana. So the rest of our deck is going to be dealing with stalling our opponent, eliminating our opponent's threats, or ramping to get to that mana. Okay, so let's start with the threats. Okay, so there's actually a ton of different types of threats you can play. Here are some of the more common ones. So we got Chandra Pyromaster. Okay, so she's just basically able to ping opponents, but basically you're not really going to try and +1 her that often. Typically what you're going to do is use her 0 ability to exile the top card of your library and play it this turn, right? So she's just giving you extra card draw. Koth the Hammer is actually pretty huge. When I first saw Koth, I didn't think he was that great. I was like, it seems okay, but actually he's pretty sweet. Okay, so Koth is 2 of anything and 2 red for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. And he has basically +1 untapped target mountain, becomes a 4/4 red elemental creature till end of turn. That's still a land. Okay, and that elemental creature can attack right away, unless you don't choose a mountain that you just played that turn. Okay, but you can play a mountain that doesn't have summoning sickness, and then you can attack that turn. All right, but the good thing is with Koth is that he ultimates very, very fast. Right, so like the first turn you put him out, he's going to tick up to 4, the next turn to 5, and then the next turn after that he can ultimate. Okay, you can use his -2 to add red mana to your mana pool for every mountain you control. Typically we don't do that. But we typically go to the -5 as soon as we can, and you get an emblem with mountains you control have tap. This land deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Now, typically, by the time you have this out, you're going to have at least a minimum of 4 mountains out, but you'll probably have maybe 6 or 7 or something like that. And then you can just ping your opponent and all his creatures and stuff just like crazy, and it's going to be really hard for them to recover from that. Right, so Koth of the Hammer is just a really great card. We also have Pia. Well, the Pia and Kiran Nalar I'll talk about later, because they're not really our endgame threats. Okay, we have Sarkin the Dragonspeaker. So until end of turn, Sarkin the Dragonspeaker becomes a legendary 4/4 red dragon with flying, indestructible, and haste. Okay, that's his +1. -3 is deals 4 damage to target creature. So he can offer a little bit of protection. Okay, his -6 is you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your draw step, draw 2 additional cards, and at the beginning of your end step, discard your hand. Right, so we typically by that point we might be empty-handed. We don't really want to go there if we can avoid it, but Sarkin is just pretty sweet because he can become this 4/4 indestructible flying creature. So that's pretty sweet. We also are running 2 Stormbreath Dragons. Right, so flying, haste, protection from white means that he can't be eliminated using Path to Exile. So that's actually, pretty powerful one. Stormbreath Dragon is going to draw a ton of hate, especially if you make him monstrous. If you can get him monstrous, like, where he becomes a 7/7, and then it deals damage to each opponent equal to the number of cards in that player's hand, he's gonna draw a ton of hate. Your opponents are going to try and remove him as soon as possible. Okay, we're also playing Batterskull, so living weapon, equipped creature gets +4/+4, has vigilance and lifelink. Okay, so if you can start attacking with a Batterskull, then that's going to be pretty huge. All right. You also has, pretty nice ability. You can return it to your owner's hand, so if someone tries to destroy it, you can always bring it back. Godo, Bandit Warlord. Now, Godo Bandit Warlord is 6 mana 3/3, so he's not really that great as a body on board, but when he enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an equipment card and put it onto the battlefield. Okay, so that's going to be either your Batterskull or your Sword of War and Peace. All right, so then it says, whenever Godo attacks for the first time each turn, untap it and all samurai you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. So what you can do is you can attach Batterskull to it, or Sword of War and Peace, attack with it, and then there's another combat where you can attack again. So that's actually going to be pretty great, especially because he's like a tutor and creates double attacks and stuff like that. So, Godo Bandit Warlord's pretty good if you can get him off, right? So if you can manage to get him down onto the board. Okay, almost standard in this sort of deck is going to be like a Wurmcoil Engine. So Wurmcoil Engine is Death Touch and Lifelink, and when it dies, it creates 2/3/3 worms, one with Death Touch and one with Lifelink, right? So just really difficult to remove, and just an overall super powerful creature. So basically, our threats are just 4 to 6 mana good stuff. All right. Now, our protection and and ramp, okay, let's go to protection first, is going to be start off with some, standard lightning bolts. If you're playing red, you're pretty much playing full set of lightning bolts. That's pretty much a given. We're going to try and disrupt any sort of dredge or any sort of reanimator type decks. They're pretty big right now in the meta, using like prized amalgams and stuff like that. So Relic of Progenitus is going to get rid of those for us. Anything that stays on board, we're going to try and get rid of using things like Pyroclasm and Roast, all right, to get rid of those. Mind Stones are just used for ramp, okay, but sometimes, especially if you're looking for your threats or for a specific answer, you can use that Sacrifice Mind Stone and draw a card ability, and that's actually comes in handy more often than you might think. Okay, Blood Moon is a 3/, and it just wrecks other decks sometimes. Like, if they're not playing a ton of basics, like, Blood Moon can just seriously destroy another opponent. Now, I was considering putting 4 into the deck, but a lot of times it's not really relevant, and if it's not relevant, then Blood Moon's just kind of a really crappy card to have in hand. So, I only put 3 because you do want to see it pretty often, and I put 1 actually in sideboard, which I'll talk about later. Right now, I also put 2 Anger of the Gods. Now, the reason why Anger of the Gods is good is because it exiles the creatures and doesn't put them in the graveyard. So what you can do is, if you get like stupid things like Kitchen Finks or things like that, or other creatures you don't want to go back into their graveyard, you can get rid of them with Anger of the Gods, and that way they're just gone. All right, we also have Volcanic Fallout. So Volcanic Fallout's 1 of anything and 2 red. Can't be countered. Deals 2 damage to each creature and each player. Now, keep in mind that's your creatures and also yourself. So you could kill yourself with it by accident if you're just not careful. All right. Sword of War and Peace is 3 mana equipment with 2 equip cost. So equipped creature gets +2/+2, has protection from red and from white. And whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, Sword of War and Peace deals damage to that player equal to the number of cards in his or her hand, and you gain 1 life for each card in your hand. Right, so that's actually a pretty good card. Like, we're going to be able to gain a little bit of life off it. It's going to deal extra damage to your opponent. Gives you protection from red and white, +2/+2. So, it's actually a very, very strong sword there. Okay, and then lastly we have Pia and Kiran Nalar. Now, when they enter the battlefield, you get a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying, or 2 of them, sorry. And basically, they're just protection for your planeswalkers. a lot of times what will happen is that people will try and bolt your Thopters, or they'll try and bolt Pia and Kiran. But before they do, if you have the extra mana on board, it's a good idea maybe to sacrifice them. Or what you can do is chump block with the Thopter and then sacrifice it after it's blocking, and do 2 damage to the creature or another player or something like that. So it's actually a pretty good card. Again, I think a lot of people underestimate this card. It's also this is outside of gameplay, but it's also kind of, I guess, on flavor when you have Chandra Pyromaster out with Pia and Kiran Nalar and someone bolts them, and then you're like, you know, because in the story, they're Chandra's parents, and they actually get killed in front of her, or father at least gets killed in front of her, and you know that's why she ends up igniting her spark and becoming a planeswalker. So, I guess that's on flavor. All right. So just a couple things before I move on to the sideboard is one thing that you can do is using Koth of the Hammer. You don't actually have to untap your own mountain, right? You can actually untap your opponent's mountain. So if they've got a card that's kind of bugging you, like let's say they have one mountain that's they're providing all their red mana. Just one thing you can do is you can untap your opponent's mountain. Right, it becomes a 4/4 red elemental creature, and then you can Skred attack it with Skred and do damage to it for 4 and just kill their mountain. Right, so it's not something you do very often, but it's something that a lot of people forget about. Yeah, that's pretty much, like, other than that, the way you play the deck is fairly straightforward. Yeah, you're just basically trying to go out, disrupt your opponent, and then drop a couple of these, or at least one or a couple of these big threats, and then just play it out from there. The deck is surprisingly effective and surprisingly versatile. Like, when I was looking around at the different builds of Skred, there's so many and so many different cards in there that it's just really, really wide open. I'm surprised a lot more people don't play this because there's just so many options and so many ways you can go with it. Okay, anyways, let's go to sideboard here. Okay, so in the sideboard, we've got a few different types of cards. So we've got Gut Shot, so it can deal 1 damage to target creature or player. That can be a finisher, or can be something taking out like a Quick Birds of Paradise or something like that. Okay, Vandalblast, destroy target artifact, and you can overload it to destroy all instances. Okay, so you can destroy all artifacts with it. An extra relic. We are very, very weak to graveyard shenanigans. So, and we're actually, a lot of our removal puts stuff in the graveyard. So Relic of Progenitus is actually pretty strong against those, and that's why we have an extra one just in case. Okay, Reality Hemorrhage is basically does 2 damage to target creature or player, but the important thing is that this card has no color. So when you have like those like 2/2 creatures with protection from red, this card can get rid of them. So that's why we have them in there. Okay, Sudden Shock, basically a split second, can deal 2 damage to target creature or player. Now, the good thing about Sudden Shock is as long as this spell is on the stack, players can't cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. So, meaning that you can kind of disrupt a combo or things like that using Sudden Shock by doing 2 damage to someone, and then basically they can't put anything else on the stack. Alright, so we also have some Dragon's Claws, so we're casting a ton of red spells, so whenever you cast a red spell, you may gain 1 life. So we're casting so many red spells, this is going to help us against a mirror match or against other burn type matches. Torpor Orb, creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger, so that can just shut off other effects. We're running the 4th Blood Moon here, just because Blood Moon, in the cases where it's relevant, is so good. I found it really difficult not to run the 4th Blood Moon in the sideboard. We also have Stone Rain and Molten Rain, which can disrupt Tron and disrupt other... Well, Blood Moon also disrupts Tron really badly, but Stone Rain, Molten Rain can disrupt other forms of... other types of decks, including like things like Infect and stuff like that, although they might be a little too slow for Infect. Right, Boil is great for a blue deck. So if you can get Boil in your hands, destroy all islands. Like, come on, everyone hates playing against those blue control decks. I run a lot of blue control decks. I know people hate playing them. If you can cast Boil against them, like they tap out and boil them and destroy all their islands, it's kind of funny. Like, come on, that's kind of funny. Alright, and then lastly is Shatterstorm. Destroy all artifacts that can't be regenerated. That's just basically to try and battle Affinity and other decks like that. So, anyways, that's pretty much the build we have. Because it's the holidays, it's going to be very difficult for me to play too many games, but I'll try and get as many battles as I can in, so you guys can see how the deck works. If you do have suggestions, and I know actually before I ask for suggestions, I know that people are going to ask for or tell me Simian Spirit Guide belongs in here. Yes, it totally does. If you want to, put something in there, maybe take out Volcanic Fallout or something like that to put in Simian Spirit Guide. The reason why is because Simian Spirit Guide can help you to drop a turn 2 Blood Moon. So if you can get those on board, then great. But I found that Pia and Kiran Nalar and Volcanic Fallout are probably better options in there. But Simian Spirit Guide, try it out and let me know what you think. Lastly, before another suggestion I know is going to come up is Chalice of the Void. Yes, Chalice of the Void is a huge shutdown card. It's going to be enormous, so let's say, for instance, you take out your Mind Stones, Roast, and Pyroclasms. You put in Chalice of the Void on 2, okay, and you just fill that with other, more Anger of the Gods or something like that. That's going to be really, pretty good. But then you got to also deal with like all your sideboard cards and stuff like that as well. You can, but another thing is that Chalice of the Void is super, super expensive and almost would double the cost of this deck. So again, if you got them, then great. Maybe throw it in there, or throw 1 or 2 in there and see how they do. But it could be actually really bad for you as well. Anyways, if you do have other suggestions, throw them in the comments. I'm always, interested to hear what other people have to say. If you do like the videos, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Alright, it's that time again for random card review. So let's click random card and see what we get. Dakmor Lancer. Alright, starter 1999 and 7th edition. Alright, so when Dakmor Lancer comes into play, destroy target non-black creature. Alright, so it's 4 of anything and 2 black for a 3/3 body. When Dakmor Lancer comes into play, destroy target non-black creature. I'd say it's actually not really that bad, but not really that great either. I guess like the 2.5 rating really says it all. Having 6 mana is not too bad. Here's the thing. The Dakmor Lancer is basically the equivalent of 2 spells on 1 card. So, you can have any form of removal, there's Terminate or Abrupt Decays or things like that you can use to destroy, and they typically, Murder, typically cost 3. And then to be on Mana Curve, you're basically going to pay 3 to get a 3/3 body. So, paying 6 mana to get the 3/3 body, okay, well 3 of that goes to the body, and then 3 is also for the removal. And so really, it's I would say it's kind of not really that good. Yes, you're getting kind of a 2-for-1, two effects on 1 card, but the problem is that you have to play them all at once. Right? So, for instance, I would rather be able to play my 3/3 early, and rather than on, say, early as turn 6, and then, also get my removal maybe on turn 4 or whatever as well. So I wouldn't want to have to wait for turn 6 to get them both at the same time. So I don't know. I think that overall it's just an okay card. It's not horrible, but it's not great. I would maybe give it 1.5 or 2 stars rather than 2.5. I'd say it's a little bit less than average, mainly because it's essentially just does the same thing that 2 other cards would do, but it's actually better to get the 2 cards. Anyways, that's my random card review. If you disagree or if you agree, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time.